Near Jupiter's ring, in a long-abandoned mining site called Outpost 7, an old cargo ship named Silver Dagger descended gently onto a bed of dry red dust. From the cockpit stepped a man, Kael, an independent pilot who had survived countless battles and now only sought a few salvageable parts to sell at the nearest trade station. But the place that seemed long dead was still alive. As Kael quietly searched through rows of rusted containers, a strange sound came through an old public radio frequency, one that hadn't been used in years. "Hello, are you a good person?" A hesitant, childlike voice, full of fear. Not human. Not mechanical. He stopped, gripping his locator tightly. The heart he thought had long gone numb stirred with something faint, concern. "I saw your ship. You look kind. Please, don't leave." Kael slowed his steps, eyes scanning the long shadows of the mine. He wasn't a hero. He'd ignored thousands of distress signals for lack of fuel. But this time, he couldn't just keep walking. Following the signal, he arrived at a broken comms station. Beneath bent metal and snapped cables was a small hollow, and within it, a pair of eyes watching. An alien girl. Pale blue skin, softly glowing eyes, and a face smudged with dirt. She looked up at him, not with fear, but with hope. "My name is Nivy. My mother is hurt. I don't know if anyone else will come." Kael knelt down, careful and silent. He nodded. "I'll help." Inside the cramped shelter, lying on tattered cloth, was the girl's mother, Solange. Her tall body was marked with scars, and a fresh wound along her side still bled. She was alive, but barely. Cold air seeped through the metal shell. Each of Solange's breaths was a struggle. Kael got to work. Medical skills forgotten since his days as a soldier came rushing back. Antibacterial foam, painkillers, bandages. He didn't know who they were. But Niva's unblinking eyes watched him, and something deep within Kael, after years of drifting alone through the stars, rose again and lit up. He was no longer just a lone pilot. This was no longer just another salvage mission. It was the beginning of a story, born in the gray zone of space, where trust between strangers is the last thing that survives. Solange said nothing during the first 2 hours. She lay motionless, eyes closed, her breath shallow. Only the slight twitch of her fingers and the faint movement at the corners of her mouth hinted she was still fighting to live. Kael wiped the last trace of blood from her wound, set the painkiller injector aside, and exhaled. He leaned back against the cold steel wall, his eyes quietly following Niva, the little girl curled up next to her mother, clutching a tattered toy shaped like some strange beast. "Little one, why are you here alone?" Niva looked up. "Mama said this place was safe. There used to be others, but then they all left. Mama couldn't walk. I won't leave if she can't." Kael nodded, saying nothing more. He was used to this kind of world, where people, or any species for that matter, became worthless once they had nothing left to trade. And around Jupiter's belt, life had been cheap for a long time. A faint cough echoed. Solange opened her eyes. Her first look at Kael wasn't gratitude, it was suspicion. "Who are you?" Her voice was hoarse, but sharp, like a hidden blade under a thin blanket. Kael didn't flinch, Kael freelance pilot. I landed here looking for spare parts. Didn't expect to find anyone alive. Solange frowned, glanced at her daughter, then returned with a guarded glare. We have nothing to offer. Kael exhaled lightly and stood. I don't want anything. The girl called me. I just did the right thing. She didn't reply. But Niva smiled, the first smile since they met. Night fell early on the belt. Kael managed to patch together a small heater from old parts, casting a weak light like a candle in the desert. He sat beside it, carefully repairing a power conduit, while Niva crept up next to him. Uncle Kael, do you have a family? The question made his hand pause for a beat. 1 second. Then he answered. Not anymore. Mama says, if someone saves you twice, you have to keep them. Niva whispered, her eyes lighting up. You could stay. You're kind. Maybe, you could marry my mom. Kael let out a laugh, the first emotional reaction he'd shown since landing on this forsaken rock. Marry your mom? Did you ask her first? Mama didn't say it, but I saw it. When you cleaned her wound, she didn't look at you. But she didn't look away either. He stayed silent. Sometimes, children noticed more than adults ever could. Kael didn't sleep that night. He sat just outside the bunker door, watching the darkness slither through the fractured corridors. Strange sounds began to return, soft static, faint humming like frequency scans. He narrowed his eyes. No lights. But in the dark, a red blink flickered. It wasn't random. The place was no longer safe. Inside, Solange was already sitting up, though her body remained weak. She was sharpening a bent steel rod, slowly shaping it into a curved blade, precise, practiced. Kael didn't speak. He just watched her. They'll come back. She spoke first, not looking up. I know. For the girl. For whatever's in her blood. Solange finally looked up, and her eyes no longer held fear, only fury. I don't need a hero. I need someone who keeps their word. Kael nodded. I'm no hero. But if I promise, I keep it. That moment, no thank you, no full trust. Just two survivors, hardened by too much loss, measuring each other with glances and silent nods. But it was a beginning. The beginning of a bond that would stretch far beyond species, gender, or war. The next day arrived under a sky as gray as cooled ash. There was no sunrise in the mining zone, only a dull, dusty glow from a distant sun buried behind layers of orbital debris. Kael was outside, repairing the old solar panel array. Each broken plate was mended with a patience that didn't match the worn look of the man. Meanwhile, Niva trailed behind him like a shadow, her questions never ceasing. Is your ship fast? Have you ever met pirates? Have you ever killed someone? The last question made Kael pause. He looked at the girl, eyes slowing to a stillness. I have. But it never felt good. Niva asked no more. But she didn't leave. She just sat beside him, quietly, like she understood that grown UPS carried wounds that didn't bleed. Inside the station, Solange sat near the heater, knees drawn up, eyes half closed. Her skin was still pale, her body thin, but there was light returning to her gaze. Kael brought over a heated ration. Synth protein. Sort of like chicken soup. She looked at the food pouch, not reaching for it. But Niva ran up, opened the package, inhaled deeply and declared, "It smells like victory." Kael laughed. "And what does victory smell like?" "Like something you didn't think you'd get, but did." Solane didn't laugh. But the corner of her mouth twitched a flicker of emotion, the first since he'd met her. While Kael was working on restoring the internal generator, something strange happened. The comms system picked up a distorted signal, fragmented, nearly unrecognizable. He turned the dial, eyes narrowing. No voices. Just a repeating data pulse encoded, ancient, and belonging to no known civilian network. Kael shut off the unit and strode inside. "They might have found us." Solane looked up. "How?" "Not from outside. It's internal. Could be something still broadcasting." She was silent for a moment. Then slowly, her eyes drifted to Niva, who was holding her softly glowing toy. "No. It can't be." Kael stepped closer, cautious. "What is that?" "A toy, from her father. One of the few things we kept when we fled." Kael gently turned it over. Inside, he found a pulse emitter and old tracking core, once used in covert surveillance gear. "It's not just a toy, Solane. Someone might have planted this long before you even knew." Solane stood, angry. "That's not possible. I checked. It's not your fault." Kael spoke softly, still holding the toy. Their eyes met. For the first time, he didn't see Solane as someone who needed saving. And she no longer looked at him like a suspicious stranger. That night, they sat across from each other, the faint glow of the heater between them. No words. None needed. Only breathing. And the faint buzz of static from the repaired circuits. Kael asked, voice barely above a whisper, "Why didn't you call for help sooner?" Solane stared into the flame. "The last time I did, they came with chains. Called me property. Called Niva genetic asset. Not a child." She looked up, voice low but firm. "I was once married to a resistance leader. He stole design data from Union Labs, data that made Niva. Not a daughter. A tool. They called her a living key." Kael's fist clenched. "And now they've come back." Solane nodded. "Because I ran. Because I refused to let my child be turned into a weapon." A minute of silence. Then Kael said, "I'll get you both out. I've got a ship. If I scrub the trail now, they won't catch us." Solane looked up. And in her eyes, something cracked open. Not trust, but hope. Hope returning from years of burial. But none of them knew that thousands of kilometers away, a derelict satellite was still bouncing a signal. On the screen of an old Union patrol ship now hijacked, 3 blinking dots moved slowly toward them. They wouldn't knock. They were coming to reclaim what they believed was theirs. Nights in the mining zone were always cold to the bone, even with the heater running. Kael lay on the metal floor beside his toolkit, tracing an escape route on a small display with his fingertip. A simple map, just a hollow supply station, an indirect flight path, and an unregistered planet, Ilra. A place to disappear. Solane stood by the door, the maintenance lamp behind her casting light over her sharp, weary features. She wore a thin synthetic layer, her midsection wrapped in dark-stained bandages. The wound had closed, but pain still lingered in every breath. "She's asleep," she whispered. Kael nodded. "She's stronger than anyone I've ever met." Solane walked over and sat down opposite him, her back resting against the cold wall, eyes not meeting his. "I thought I would die on this station. That she would die too, because I couldn't carry her any further." "You didn't die," Kael said softly. "And I won't let either of you die." She was silent for a moment. Then she looked at him, truly looked for the first time. No suspicion, no defense. Just the eyes of someone who had lost everything, and found the one last thing worth believing in. "Have you ever loved anyone?" Kael paused. "Yes. But not anymore. They died." "No. They forgot me." She nodded slightly, asking nothing more. But her eyes softened. Outside, the sky shifted unexpectedly. A soft meteor rain swept across the thin atmosphere. Light etched graceful arcs through the ink-black night. Their reflections flickered on the cracked glass above them, rippling across the metal floor. Solane looked up, lips parting gently. "On my world, we kiss under star rain like this. Not to love, to forget." Kael asked quietly, "What do you want to forget?" She turned to him, their distance now only a few steps. Her heart pounded. Not from fear, but because it had been so long since anyone asked her something without wanting something in return. "I don't want to forget anymore." Kael reached out, his hand brushing hers. His fingers were thick and rough. Her skin was cold, but she didn't pull away. They didn't kiss. They didn't rush. There was only silence. And eyes that met. Solane leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. Their breath mingled. The pain they both carried seemed to breathe with them. "I don't know what to do with this feeling," she whispered. "What feeling?" "Wanting to believe. Wanting to touch. Wanting to stay." Kael leaned in and whispered against her ear. "Then don't do anything. Just let it come." And they let it come. No clothes were shed. No barriers removed except fear. Their first embrace wasn't desire, it was resurrection. As if two bodies frozen for years had only needed human warmth to melt. Solane lay sideways, her head resting on his shoulder, hand lightly on his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady, deep, and real. "On my planet," she murmured, half asleep, "they call this moment the rejoin point, when two broken beings find the part of themselves lost in another." Kael said nothing. He only tightened his arms around her. And that night, they didn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because they had finally found each other. Outside, in the quiet void, a red signal blinked for the second time. Kael awoke to a sound so faint it didn't belong to this place. A strange rhythm, softer than breath. A whisper of metal brushing against earth, quick, subtle, but enough to awaken the survival instinct honed by war. Solane was no longer beside him. The auxiliary interface flickered, warning of external movement 3 signals, 400 meters out. No ID codes. No navigation beacons. Just dark shapes in the night, moving toward the station. Outside, Solane was already standing silent, gripping a curved blade forged from a salvaged crankshaft. She had sensed them before Kael did, through the intuition of someone who had been hunted for far too long. Kael approached, blaster in hand, eyes fixed on the distant signals. "They're here." Solane nodded slightly. 3. Maybe more. They always leave one behind to watch. "Where's Niva?" "She's asleep. But they won't care." Kael tightened his grip. "I'll hold them outside. Get her to the bunker." Inside, Niva stirred at the sound of her mother's footsteps. She barely had time to process before Solane knelt before her, urgency in her eyes but no panic. "Listen to me, Niva. Get to the bunker. Don't come out until I call. Understand?" "But Mama." "No but." Solane gripped her shoulders. "I promised I'd never let anyone take you. I'm keeping that promise." Niva bit her lip, nodded, then slipped into the hatch below as it opened. Outside, the wind howled under heavy boots. The first soldier emerged from the shadows. Kael didn't shoot. He waited, then rolled left and fired. A burst of plasma tore through the intruder's leg, dropping him instantly. The other 2 scattered, returning fire. Beams of light slashed through the dark, scorching the barricade where Kael had just ducked. A stun grenade clinked to the floor near him. Kael rolled backward, kicked it toward a steel wall, and ignited a cloud of smoke. A shout. "Engage target. Take alive. Priority, the girl." In the haze, a figure darted from the side Solane. Her curved blade sliced through the second soldier's visor, leaving a trail of blood and sparks. He screamed. The final soldier turned, fired directly at her. Kael saw it. Solane crumpled, blood streaming down her side. She didn't black out, but she could no longer stand. He shouted, charging, tackling the last attacker. They tumbled down the old slope. Rage. Pain. Unfinished promises all condensed into one crushing punch. Crack. The last soldier slumped, motionless. Kael scrambled back, pulling Solane into his arms. Don't close your eyes. We're not done." She gasped, smiling faintly. "I'm fine. Just a cut." "But Niva." Panic surged. "The bunker." She nodded. He ran. But the bunker was empty. No sound. No footprints. Just one object left behind, Niva's toy, the same keepsake that once carried a hidden signal, now lying on its side. Kael picked it up. Next to it, a fresh burn mark scorched the wall, a tunnel, bored from the outside. They hadn't come through the front. They came from below. He ran back. Solane, they took her. Her face turned pale. "No. Kael. I can't." Kael dropped to his knees, gripping her hand. "Listen to me. You haven't lost her. I'll bring her back. I swear it. Not as a pilot, but as the man you chose to trust. She gave a small nod. Her body was failing, but her voice still sharp. Bring her home. Don't let them use her as a weapon. Don't let my blood become the key to another war. Kael squeezed her hand once, then turned and ran toward the silver dagger, his ship, no longer just a freighter, but a vessel of a promise. Far above, in the dust-thick sky, an unnamed ship was slipping away, veiled in faint ion trails that would soon vanish. Niva was inside. Bound. Gagged. Eyes wide open, searching for the light she still believed would return. And from beneath a chasing wind, a voice echoed softly. Hold on, little one. I'm coming. The silver dagger surged through the darkness of the asteroid belt, leaving the outpost far behind, where Solana lay inside a makeshift medbay, pale skin but eyes still burning with fire. Kael locked himself in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the faint ion trail leading to a dead zone on the star map, an unregistered sector with no name, no light, and perhaps no way back. Ahead floated a research station, disguised as space debris, surrounded by a thin magnetic shield. That's where they took Niva. Kael knew this place. Years ago, he delivered weapon caches here. And he knew this wasn't a lab. It was a gene slaughterhouse, a vault where rare life forms were disassembled for the Empire's ambitions. He whispered into the mic. Niva. I'm here. Niva was strapped to a rotating chair in a blinding white room, surrounded by frosted glass. A man in a gray coat stood before her, red-eyed, expressionless. Do you know why I call you a code? Because you're not human. Not a child. You're the result of an equation. Niva didn't answer. Her eyes widened not with fear, but with certainty. Uncle Kael would never break his promise. Kael landed the ship on the blind side of the station, attaching an EMP charge to a side hatch before crawling through the vent system. No guards. None needed. The station trusted its sealed design. A fatal mistake. Kael activated the toy Niva had left behind, now turned into a reverse tracker. He heard footsteps. A group of black-suited guards approached the cell. 4 of them. 3 in the hallway. 1 unlocking the gene chamber. I'm not here to negotiate, he muttered. I'm here to take back what never should have been stolen. He struck first. The first plasma shot missed, smashing a conduit to his left. Kael rolled and returned fire. 1 guard fell. The other 2 split. But Kael had fought in tighter quarters before. He closed in, disarmed 1, spun 2 down. Alarm sirens wailed. The system detected intrusion. Locked the doors. Sealed the core. Too late. Kael kicked open the main cell. Blinding white light flooded out and Niva saw him. You kept your promise. He cut the restraints. She threw her arms around him. Where's Mom? Safe. Waiting for you. They'll come back. Not if we move fast. The chief warden emerged, clad in reflective armor and a red mask. You don't understand. This girl is a tool. A key to Vault 12, hiding ancient tech we barely comprehend. Kael smirked. even less reason for you to own it. He fired. The shot deflected. The warden charged. Kael shielded Niva, grabbed his last plasma grenade, and dropped it. The blast rattled the walls. The warden stumbled. Kael aimed again, this time at the neural core behind the collar. Hit. Electricity surged through the suit. The red eyes dimmed and went out. Kael and Niva boarded the Silver Dagger just as the station began to implode. The ship burst free of the dead zone, setting course for Illura, where Solanae waited. In the cockpit, Kael sat quietly while Niva curled up in his arms, still clutching the silent toy. "Were you scared?" he asked. "Yes. But you kept your word. I believe in you." Kael looked out at the sky, tinged with violet stars. "Next time, I won't let them get close. I swear." And this time that vow wasn't just a duty. It was part of who he was. Illura appeared on the horizon, an unmarked planet hidden deep in a neutral zone. The atmosphere was stable. No checkpoints. No commercial signals. Just endless green forests, gentle stone ridges, and rivers winding through mist-covered valleys. "We're almost there," Kael said quietly from the pilot's seat. Solanae sat beside him. Her eyes still showed the shadows of an unhealed wound, but the storm within them had passed. In the back cabin, Niva was asleep, clutching her old toy, its circuitry now removed and stitched with soft thread. Kael tilted his head toward Solanae and half-joked. "This isn't paradise. But it's the first place I've ever wanted to live instead of just survive." Solanae smiled a real smile. 2 weeks later, on a hillside covered in tall grass, a small wooden house took shape. Kael used scraps from his old ship to reinforce the roof, while Solanae planted vegetables by the stream, the same hands that once held a sword now covered in earth. As for Niva, she sang. Every afternoon, she ran around the house with homemade ribbons, tying them to windows and calling it a cosmic inauguration ceremony. She declared, "From now on, this is our planet of 3. Kael chuckled. "Sounds like a tiny empire." "We don't need an empire," she replied. "We just need each other." That night, after Niva had gone to sleep, Solanae stepped out of the house holding a neatly folded white cloth. Kael was outside, gazing up at the stars. "Niva left this on your bed," she said, holding it out. Kael unfolded it, a tiny wedding dress made from old medical gauze and thin twine. He laughed, a sound that caught in his throat. "She's more serious than we thought." Solanae sat beside him. The soft golden lantern light cast gentle shadows across her cheek, her hair fell loosely over her shoulder, and her eyes were calm. "She didn't choose wrong," she whispered. Kael was silent for a while, then turned to her. "I'm not the best man. I'm not easy to be with. But I swore to protect her. And I want to keep that promise, not just for Niva." Solanae placed her hand lightly over his. "I know. I knew back at the station. I just wasn't sure if I could open my heart again." Kael smiled faintly. "Then I'll wait." "You don't have to." And this time she kissed him first. No hesitation. No words. Just a real kiss, beneath green leaves, on the steps of the home they had built together. They didn't go inside right away. They sat there, back to back, watching the stars above. Solane spoke, her voice soft as a prayer. I used to think I was the last remnant of a failed empire. But if I can still love, maybe I wasn't made to destroy. Kael gently squeezed her hand. You weren't made for anything. You were born. And now you're living not to run, but because you finally have somewhere to belong. The next morning, Kael found a handwritten note from Niva on the chair. Even if you two don't actually get married, I'll still call you both my family. But if you do, I'm throwing the flowers. He handed the letter to Solane. They both laughed, not loudly, but truly.